Hi, everyone. Carrie Luderin here. I'm a professional organizer and interior designer, and I'm here today talking with Cady Henry. She is an expert at childcare. And Cady, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Cady Henry. I'm a childcare expert and owner of Cady Sitting. So I provide childcare services as well as advice for families and childcare providers.
Awesome. So today I'm excited about our conversation today because I think this is such an issue for parents, and that is how to organize kids' paperwork.
Yes.
Right? This is a very common issue with
Yeah.
the folks that I work with and maybe the people that you work with as well. I think kids generate a lot of paperwork through
Yeah.
school on their own. Children are generally really into creative projects and drawing and cutting stuff, and those are great things for them to do as far as learning those skills. But it also generates this huge volume of stuff, and then as a parent, it's your job to store it, organize it, and I think most importantly, make decisions about how much of it do you need to hang on to. So we're going to get into all of that today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Okay. So we talked a little bit before about this, and we thought there were a few different categories of paperwork, and we'll talk about each of them in succession. But one we're calling kind of long-term important paperwork. One falls into the category of the more everyday paperwork. And then the last thing that we'll touch on, which is really the biggest one, is like the creative paperwork, art projects, drawings, paintings, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
The big stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's usually people's largest issue, but let's touch on these other ones first, just to give a few kind of, ideas for organization and best practices. So the long-term paperwork would include things like your child's birth certificate, maybe medical records, immunization records, anything else that...
I think as they get older, maybe testing scores for exam, probably like Regents exams, permits.
Yeah. Okay. So it will
anything college related as they get
stuff,
older,
yeah.
and they're starting AP credits, any of those types of
okay.
long-term paperwork that they'll need.
So the idea here is these are things that you might need to reference at some point, but you probably don't need to be looking at them on a regular basis.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. You need to know where they are. Yeah.
Right. If you need that information. So this stuff doesn't need to be in the midst of like your everyday, living. If you have a home organization center for like, family processing mail and stuff, it doesn't need to be there.
Right. It doesn't need to be like present. No.
Right. So I think any household needs some sort of long-term filing system. It could be just a drawer in a desk maybe, or if you have a small filing cabinet, or it could even be a file box. It really, different households have different needs depending on how much paperwork. But I usually recommend that people keep a section in their filing system called family or personal. And within that section, maybe each person in the household and each pet has a folder. And then all of that important paperwork can be stored for each person, including each of your kids. So you know where to find it, but it doesn't need to be in the midst of, your everyday living.
Yeah, and just make a habit out of putting it right into that folder. I mean, we already have like a pretty decent size one for Emmett because you're not sure in the long run what you're going to be needing to keep. So like all of his medical paperwork, all the stuff we got from the hospital that you get, you get like a lot of like little records that say like he passed certain tests and stuff. And, right now, like everything just goes into that file and we'll sort through it and read through it as we need to.
Great. Okay. Yeah. I think that's there will probably be different times in their life where there'll be more of this paperwork than others. But, as you say, you don't really know exactly what to keep at that age. So, you might err on the side of caution. And then a few years down the line, you can decide, does all this stuff need to stay?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of the important one. I will also say things like legal documents, like a birth certificate, I recommend for anyone in the household, those things should be kept in a fire safe box, or, just
Yeah, that makes sense.
in case of some kind of, household, fire or water damage or something, that stuff is being protected. So, and that would be the case for everyone in the household.
Yeah, just all their stuff goes right into there.
Right, right. The stuff that you could replace, but it would be really a pain to replace.
Yeah.
So put it someplace where it's protected.
Yeah. Like the social security cards and birth
Yeah,
certificates, passports, those kind of
exactly.
items for the family all go into that bin.
Right,
Or
right,
filing, yeah, the fire safety.
right. So that's kind of the long-term stuff. And then I think with parents, there's often a lot of everyday, we're going to call it everyday paperwork, like the stuff that is maybe important right now, and you do need to refer back to it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking stuff like the academic calendars, or like sports or activity calendars.
Yeah, the permission slips that come home.
Mhm.
I think a lot of schools do monthly newsletters for the classroom. Those
Mm.
typically, will come. The teacher will write up a monthly newsletter, letting you know what's going on in the classroom and giving you updates. Those go home a lot. Yeah, the school calendars, the schedules.
Right. Maybe like if they have reading lists, or like ongoing homework things that
Yep.
need to get, you need to consistently review, that type of thing. So for that, I think having some kind of container for those files that you can easily get into. I grabbed something. This is just a cardboard one, but just as an example, it's kind of like a small file box, which then, you can put these are just kind of standard manila folders into. It doesn't have to be, it probably doesn't need to be really huge, something like this, if it's going to be out somewhere. Again, this is cardboard, but there are very nice looking
Yeah.
ones. And there are even decorative folders you can get that are really cute. So if you want to have it out on a kitchen counter, or, family command center, or somewhere that's visible, you can do that. And you can just have a folder in here for maybe, all the calendars go in one, or maybe you have a folder for each child in here, for the stuff that you need to get into on a regular basis.
Yeah, that you need to have more daily access to.
Right, right. And I also find, for some people, out of sight, out of mind with filing. So for some people, putting something that needs to be acted on, something that needs action, putting it away in a folder will get forgotten.
Like
So
like this permission slips that come home from school.
yeah, something that needs your signature or has to be reviewed and sent back. So in that case, you might just be honest with yourself. Like, if you put it away in a folder, are you going to forget? Maybe having a desk tray, or even just a spot, like a designated place on your desk where those things go. And then they're sitting out, so you're getting that constant reminder to address them.
Yeah, and that's also a great way to, as your kids get older and they're bringing home things from school, to involve them in the process and like teach them those skills of organization and responsibility. So when they get home, if it's they take out their homework folder from their backpack, they unload, which is usually where all the paperwork is, and they decide, okay, this is the stuff that needs to go into the tray, and this is the stuff that doesn't need to, and dad need to look at this, and they need to take action on it, and then it's got to go back in my folder and into my backpack.
That's great. So you're talking about getting your kids involved and sort of teaching them the importance of keeping track of this paperwork, and creating a system that's easy for them, where they know, when I go to do my homework, I have to put anything that mom or dad needs to sign here. And then, maybe the parent can then have the process of, okay, once it's done, I put it back in their backpack.
Yeah.
But thinking through that process, and as you say, as the kid gets old enough to take on some of that responsibility, to set that expectation and help them through that.
Absolutely. And it's a lifelong skill that they're learning, to be able to say, to organize their paperwork, their items, and to know what needs to take action now. And if there's a deadline for something, and taking responsibility for that.
That's great. Those are obviously important lessons
Yeah.
that some of us as adults still struggle with.
Yeah.
So I think the earlier that we can get started on that, the better, right?
Like, it's hard. Yeah. When you get that mail out in your mailbox, I'm like, I don't want to go through this right now. But then if you, that letting it sit there, and you're not, sorting through it and taking action on what needs to get done, and then it can just sit and you can procrastinate it. And if you're helping to instill those skills at a younger age, it'll be
Yeah.
easier for them as they get older.
Yeah. I think what we're talking about, setting up a system for paperwork,
Yes.
is not just for your kids, but it's important for everyone to have. And sometimes it's maybe if you are having this issue with your kids' homework and stuff, and you're setting that up for them, you can think through your own process as well, and maybe make some tweaks for the household. So.
And I have to imagine, like, it gets very stressful having all the paperwork come in the house and keep track of everything, especially if you have more than one child, and what has to go in whose backpack and be sent back to school. So like you're saying, I love the idea of that family command center where you can keep the paperwork. So to hopefully ease that burden and ease that stress of, where's the permission slip? I signed it. Like, where did it go? Or I said I brought it home and you don't know where it is. So having it all go to that one spot and instill that skill and that habit.
Right. That's going to help everybody at home.
Yeah.
And I'll just make one point about bulletin boards or putting stuff on the fridge. Again, whatever works for you. If you have a system of doing that type of thing and it works for you, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. But I find those things, it's almost like it becomes part of the scenery after a while.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Seeing it,
Yeah, I was going to ask, if it kind of just starts to blend in with the background, like you just start opening the refrigerator door so many times and like in your kitchen so much that it just kind of becomes part of the refrigerator aesthetic and it's not really like standing out to you.
Yeah, I think so. And things like bulletin boards too, it's, the idea is, I'll tack it up there and so it'll be visible and I'll be reminded to address it. But I find that, we just, like other things in our home, other clutter, we just stop seeing it after a while. So again, some of this is experimental and different things work for different people. But I think maybe designating a spot for the action paperwork that isn't just stuck to the fridge might work better for most people.
Yeah.
So try that out. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So those are, I think, the smaller issues of paperwork, but important. These are things that if you need them or if they need to be addressed, it's important that they not get lost. So thinking through and setting up some kind of system for your household is important for that. But really, I think the biggest issue with clutter as far as kids' paperwork goes is it's the schoolwork, it's the artwork, it's all of that stuff, right?
All the stuff that comes home. There's every holiday, every, month is a different theme. Like a lot comes home with the artwork and the creative work. And like you're saying, like the school worksheets, spelling tests, homework sheets, all of that, it really starts to accumulate and add up.
Yeah. So that's a lot to manage. And I think just like with other things things we talked about last week, the less you have to organize, the easier it's going to be.
Yes.
So they're bringing home this volume of stuff, but that doesn't mean all of it needs to be kept, right?
Yes. Right. Like we were saying earlier, you're going to get a lot for holidays, especially, not this year, but typically you'll be getting Mother's Day things and Father's Day things that your kids make with their like cute little handprints or footprint or something adorable. And, one thing to keep in mind is if you hang that piece of artwork up and somewhere in your house and you get to look at it and it brings you joy and you love it. And then after a few weeks or so, you're kind of like, okay, I'm going to take this down now. It's run its course. It has served its purpose. And like, don't feel guilty about saying like, that brought me joy for a little while. And I got to look at it and I loved it. And I loved seeing my kid bring it home and then recycling it. Just don't feel guilty about that.
Yeah. I think that's great. That's kind of the advice I give about greeting cards when people get like a birthday card and stuff. And then we get it and we might have it sitting out for a little bit, maybe a week or so. And then it's like, well, what do I do? Do I keep every card everyone gave me? And that's just not practical.
No.
And you're saying kind of the same thing. Some of this stuff is really meant for a period of time and you enjoy it, but then they're probably bringing something home the next month that you might want to do the same thing with. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like another thing too, we've talked about is that a lot of this is, and you shared a really good story about the truck, but a lot of this is about process over product for kids. If you
Hmm.
really sit down with kids and watch them do artwork or go through their creative process, it's more about the skill that they're learning and um, the joy that they're experiencing doing the thing than it is really about that final piece. Not always, like some for sure there are times when a kid works really hard on something and as they get older it's the process does lead up to the product, but when they're especially when they're little, like we're the reason a lot of these art projects exist is we're teaching them to manipulate the materials, so that to use the scissors, to use the glue, to kind of experiment with the world and explore the world around them and work through understanding those materials. So that's more, it's kind of also served its purpose in that way too. Like they've worked through that process, they're progressing in a skill. The product might not necessarily be as important.
Okay. So yeah, that is really interesting. You referred to the truck story, and
Yeah.
I read this book by an author named Austin Kleon, and he's an artist, and he talked about watching his son create art, and specifically he was drawing a truck, and he just kept drawing. He would do the drawing, and then he would just toss it and then do another one, and it was almost like he was figuring out the truck, or he was like
Yeah.
learning about that, and that was really the purpose of the art, and not creating this masterpiece of a truck.
Truck. Yeah. That you need to like keep.
Yeah. And you're talking about like, they're learning these skills, fine motor skills, learning how to use tools, learning how to use glue
Yeah.
and
Sensory
right,
stuff like using their hands and
right. So that's really the purpose of creating the art. It's not that you create this thing at the end of it that needs to then be really
yeah.
kept forever.
Cherished and is precious. Yeah.
Yes, yes, right.
Yeah.
It was more about the doing and not the end result for the kid.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
now, as the parent, that's your decision to say, this is important to me to keep, or it's not. Your kid may or may not care, right? They've done the drawing, they're like
Yeah.
over it. But what can we tell parents about making those decisions? Because I feel like there's a lot of guilt and just, there is this tendency to feel like it's all important, it's all precious, but it's
Yeah.
just too much to keep. Like everything they've ever drawn is too much to keep.
And yeah, you can't. And I think this goes back to like what we said previously, and it's kind of a theme is the less is more
Mm-hmm.
idea. So keeping less in the long run will make more of an impact and be more meaningful. I think, really looking at a piece of artwork or whatever it is that they're bringing home, and does it represent your child at this time in their life? Is there something that they're really interested in and really loving and exploring? And that might be a good, picking a few pieces throughout the year that represent them, to save those few pieces. I think also, say your child is really working on a skill set. Maybe it's really like trying to master writing their name or what have you, and keeping something from the beginning, middle, and end of the year to see that progress. That could be really important. And I think also remembering who are you keeping it for? Like, who's the end user? We said, like, who are you keeping this for in the long run? There's a lot. I take a lot of pictures of Emmett. There's a lot that I know I will keep of his. But
Mm-hmm.
if it's for me so that I can remember this time and look back at it, I'm sentimental. It triggers those memories for me
Sure.
as a parent. So just be aware of that. Are you keeping these for yourself to look back at? Are you keeping it for your kid to look at someday because you want them to have these memories and like look back at the progress that they've made and who they were when they were little?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, those are some really great points. I think I'll just share from my own life. My
Yeah.
mother has kept literally like one box, kind of small
Yeah.
box of stuff, and our baby book, which she was very good about. I think there's a scrapbook of some sort in there for both me and my brother, but it's really a limited amount. And it's just a couple things from each year when we were little. And that is something that, every couple years or so, I might bring that
Yeah.
stuff out and flip through it and feel nostalgic and like, oh, look at this cute thing that I drew in nursery school. But if it was like boxes upon boxes of that stuff, I would never look at that.
No,
It would be too overwhelming. Like it's the kind of thing I can look at in an hour or less. And
that's perfect.
yeah. So I think what you said about the less you keep, the more precious each thing is, the more important each thing is a good lesson for people.
Yeah, and then you're like really truly picking pieces, like we said, that represent that child at that time in their life, and really demonstrate who they were, instead of just being kind of flippant about saving everything. And then, like you said, as you get to be an adult, you have these crates of stuff, and you don't want to spend the time like looking through. It doesn't mean anything to you. Then you're just like bogged down and overwhelmed by all the extra paperwork,
right?
And it's not going to bring any joy. It's just like a bin you have to carry from house to house as you move.
Right. And I have friends, whose parents have gotten to that point where they're like, you need to take your stuff. And then the kid is like, I don't want that stuff. Like, just toss it out. And the parents feel bad and they become like, it's this issue. So yeah, if you can be really selective on the front end, I think you save everyone a lot of grief, and you save yourself the space of having to like store all of this stuff, because it can really be a burden in that way.
And you had shared a really good system about how to kind of save the paperwork or artwork for like the year, and then move it into like a filing cabinet.
Yeah. So I have a couple things to show. So I usually, for parents who have younger kids, I usually recommend, this is hard to show, but one of these, the brand is Iris, and this is available in craft stores and online and stuff, but it's basically for scrapbooking, and it has, the top that pops open. But I feel like this is a good goal, like for one academic year.
Yeah.
I also think that as for the current year that you're in, having something that's like easily accessible, like if you have to go file something in a box in the attic or whatever, you're never going to do that. But having just like something like this in a spot in your house that you can get to easily. Yes. And then, but again, this gives you a limit. Like it's only this thick.
It's a good visual. So like that's as much as you can.
Right. It's this thick, how much paperwork, how much stuff. So as you're putting this stuff, as the year goes on, they bring something home. You're like, oh, this is so cute. I need to keep this. You pop it in here. But as this bin gets full, then you need to start weeding stuff out to add more things in. So you have to, it's sort of forcing you to prioritize on the front end, which I think is helpful.
Yeah, because there might be something that you looked at the beginning of the year and you thought was really meaningful, but as like the school year goes on, you realize you have 3 of those things that represent that, whatever that might be, like them learning how to write their name. You don't need all 3. They're not, you can let go of a couple.
Right. So I think for most families, like one, and these could be labeled with the child's name or, whatever works for you.
And that makes it easy too, like you said, because it can just be something right there and easily accessible for families. So they're not having to
slide stuff in.
Yeah.
Because I feel like these are the things that you set them somewhere like, oh, I'm going to put that away. And then it never gets anywhere and it just becomes clutter. And then things get ruined or they get lost or whatever. So if they have, again, I'm big on setting up the system at the start and then working through it. So then at the end of the year, you have that bin about this much of stuff that you've saved. And then I think, again, for the more long-term storage, I'll see if I can show this, but this is like a filing box. It's pretty basic. These come in different colors. They come in clear. And it just has the top that comes off. And this accommodates hanging files. So I have, this is all backwards for me. So I'm struggling.
We can see it. Yeah.
I'm on the struggle bus here. But basically what's in here are these hanging folders. And I like to use this type of system where you have the hanging folder and then you have the manila folder inside. And these are like the most inexpensive, basic filing supplies that you can get. But if you want them to be cute or whatever, I mean, there are plenty of adorable ones. Yeah. So, but using the combination of the hanging and the manila folder means the system can expand and get smaller as you need it, because you can add more of these hanging folders around these as you need, but then you can still pull the folder out if you need to add to it or if you want to flip through it, and then you can just set it back.
Set it back in.
Yeah. So I would recommend, here's the thing. This may change as your child gets older. They're probably going to bring home a ton of stuff when they're younger. And then as they get into like junior high school, you're probably going to have very thin folders of their things, right?
Yeah. They're bringing home just less.
Yeah, and they're not as it's not as focused on the artwork creation side. It's more like,
more academic.
Yeah. And which you still might want to keep, but it's probably going to be a smaller volume of things. But so you can do one, maybe start with one folder per year. Again, at the younger grades, you might need to expand these or have more folders for each year. But again, the goal is that everything for their entire academics till they graduate from high school fits in this one box.
That's a good goal.
It's a good goal, right? I don't know, that may seem big or small, and they make different sizes of these. I mean, you could get a slightly larger one, but I encourage you, I challenge you to do that, because imagine, imagine years beyond, once your kid has graduated and they're an adult, are they gonna, how much are they reasonably gonna be interested in looking at from that age? And same with you, like how it's probably seems all really important at the time.
Absolutely.
But when your kid's 30, is it going to be important that you kept like every spelling test?
Yeah. And like you always, and like we said before, the more you have, the less inclined you are to go through it. And I think
absolutely
that's what we need to think about, keep thinking about, is like you're saying, that long term, like who are we doing this for? And like, what is this going to look like in 30 years from now when they're adults and they have their own houses and they're settling down and they've got their own, their own kids and their wife and what have you, like, it's a lot.
Right. And at some point you're probably going to give them this stuff, right? It's going to become theirs. Maybe, I don't know, it might be stored at your house but I find at some point, usually parents get to me because of how old I am. Parents are like, we're over it. We don't want all your school crap. Like, take it.
Yeah, my mom was like, clean the basement. It's got to go.
And if my mom did that and handed me like 10 boxes worth of stuff, I would be like, you got to be kidding me. Like, now I have to. Right. Now I have to go through all that. That's like a huge project. If you give me one box, I'm like, great. Maybe if I have kids, they'll want to look at this and laugh at things or whatever. But yeah, so the general process is, for the year, shoot for this. And then when the year is over, and you go to add it to the big box, again, be selective. So you might take
very intentional.
Yeah. And like we've said, things that maybe show important progress for your kid, things that say something important about who they were, or maybe they were really into certain things, like, they loved drawing whatever, animals or dinosaurs, or, at that age, keeping a few of those things is going to say something about them at that age.
Yes. It's way more important and powerful than just keeping every little item.
Right. And I feel like a lot of the stuff done in school, again, is more skills-based activity, and it's not really like that creative for the child. So be real selective, I'd say, about those things, like worksheets and
the
coloring
worksheets.
Pages and things that are standardized and like every kid is just filling it out.
Yeah, you're just doing it as they're doing it for assessment or for progress.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So, Cady, what do you have to say? I know I have a lot of clients that struggle with their kids bring home giant things that they've made, like huge construction paper creations or big posters, or they've like traced their whole body.
Yeah, the body ones.
Like what I understand that might be a fun activity in school, but like what did their teachers think we're supposed to do with that stuff?
Yeah. Again,
it's like impossible to store.
Yeah, it's super fun activity. Again, like, it's there for process over product most of the time. Learning the skill. But when they come home, there's a couple different things you can do with those pieces. I suggest with the bigger ones, taking a picture with them, of the artwork and saving it if you'd like to upload it digitally that way. those bigger pieces of artwork that are coming home, what's going to happen if you try to save them? There's nowhere to put them, and they're not going to fit in your filing box. They're going to get ruined. They're going to fade.
Right.
They're going to fall apart. And then there's no reason to have it. Then it's just going to get tossed. If you can take a picture of it and digitally upload it. We talked too about even taking a picture of, if the kid traces themselves, it might be fun to take the picture of your kid with the cardboard cutout that they've traced
Mhm.
themselves, and then maybe
Right. And them
have them,
holding it.
them holding it. Maybe they have them say something about it. I've seen
I love
great
that.
little art books that parents have done where they take pictures of the kids' artwork, upload it digitally, and at the end of the year, just again, selective pieces. You don't need to do everything. It doesn't need to be like a huge book.
Mhm.
But Shutterfly does. You can just get a little like 6x6 or 4x4 art
Right.
workbook and have pictures with the kids in it, with their art, maybe things that they've said about their art, and those are fun for for you and for the kid to look back on as they get older. You can also do art galleries in your
Mhm.
child's room or playroom, where you could get wire and hang up with like little clothespins, or however works best for your style, and make it look really cute, and hang up and just interchange those out so your
Yeah.
kid can look at it and enjoy it. And then when it's served its purpose of providing joy, and when you're done with it, if it's too big or you don't feel like it needs to be saved, you can just put it in the recycling bin, and everybody got to enjoy it.
Right. It served its purpose.
Yes.
And I feel like if you have a hanging system like that, that's an easy way to take a picture of things too. So
Yeah.
before you take it down, maybe snap a picture. I love that idea of the photo book, art book. And I feel like I have used those services like Snapfish, and it's so user friendly
That
to
is
like
so
upload
easy to
the
use.
pictures. They have templates that are, you can select your background template, and then
Yeah.
you have fields where you can add like, who was their teacher and who were their best friends, and ask them to talk about their
Yeah.
school year, about their projects, or what did they have to say about it. And to me, that's so much more meaningful than this like crumbling piece of cardboard that has been like stuck
Yeah.
under your bed for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's like
You don't
falling
even
apart.
remember. Yeah, you pull it out and I don't remember what this was. Like in 30 years,
Yeah.
you're like, I don't remember what this was, why we have this, what is it? It doesn't it has no meaning to me anymore. But
Right.
maybe putting it more in an art book.
Right. And
will
giving it
bring
some context.
Yeah, giving it context has more meaning. And like we said, you can get as elaborate with them as you want if it's something that you really want to sit down and spend time on, or just really simple. Like you said, those sites are so user friendly.
Upload the photos.
It doesn't take any time.
It shows up at your house.
It's perfect.
And then
like,
you can also make, like, if that might be a fun gift for grandparents and stuff, to like give them the annual book of their creations and artwork and stuff.
And
So that could be two
And as
birds
the
with
kids get
one stone.
older, they can get involved with it too, and they can select what artwork would they like to include in their art book.
Yeah.
And have them. I mean, kids are so computer savvy. Like, have them sit down with you and create it together.
Right. At this stage, most kids, you can probably just hand it off to them. They can do it.
They would know what to do. Yeah.
They're more
absolutely.
savvy than most of us are. So I feel like we're getting so excited about this project. Like, I'm like,
I can't wait to do this for Emmett.
Right. We're like, come on, kids, start making stuff.
Let's do this. Yeah. Little gallery. Yeah. Little coffee table art book for stuff by Emmett. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so this is really fun. I think we've given people a lot of ideas here about organizing paperwork, what to do with it. And I feel like we're going to come back to this point repeatedly, but parents, we want to give people permission to let go of some of the guilt around these things, right?
Yes. I think that's like our motto for these conversations.
Yeah.
It's the theme that comes up. And I feel as a parent, I felt it as a nanny. I see it with parents. There's this pressure to keep it all. It is all precious, and you should cherish it and love it. But it's okay to not consider it all to be precious, to not cherish all of it, and to let it go without any guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's I think that's really hard for people. And
absolutely,
just to give yourself permission. And you probably will feel something, when you're tossing out some drawings or whatever, but
that's okay.
It's okay. And I think you can again, try to put yourself and your kids fast forward to when they're older, and you guys might be looking through the stuff together, and like how much is reasonable to keep and how much is going to be interesting for everyone.
Yes,
far in the
exactly.
future. So
Yeah, for sure.
And this too can be an ongoing process. I mean, as you maybe if you have a process where at the end of each school year or sometime over the summer, whatever, you are adding, that year's stuff to the box, you might flip through the previous years. And again, I feel like as time goes on, certain things that seemed so important at the time, might seem a little less important. So you can, as time goes on, you can continue to weed the collection and really curate it so it's just the best of the best.
Absolutely. Like you said, it's a continuous fluid process that you can continue, you can keep going back to.
Right. So, all right. I love these ideas.
Yeah.
And I hope that these were helpful to everyone.
Me
Again,
too.
we are continuing the series. We're going to be doing this every Tuesday afternoon. And
continue these conversations, this series. We're coming at it from a professional organizer, interior designer perspective, as well as childcare. So we have a couple of topics in mind that we're going to keep talking about over the next few weeks. But if there's anything that would be of help and service to you guys, please let us know, and we will definitely explore and talk about those topics. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you if you have anything that you'd like to add or talked about, please send us a message or leave a comment. We look forward to hearing from all of you, and have a great day. Thank you.